Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rants alongside Tommy Krysan on this post-Super Bowl edition, Monday morning edition. Hope everybody had a great Super Bowl, whether you did it at home, watched it at home by yourself, whether you were at a big party, maybe you were at LeBear's Casino, or you were like me, who went to the Super Bowl, and regardless of whatever dollar amount I paid for my ticket, I wasted my money. Tommy, what's happening, sir? I think on paper, we said this on Saturday on Sports Shorts Radio on 104.5 in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and of course we're also on Lafayette and Lake Charles. I didn't think that. I said on paper the Philadelphia Eagles should win this game. On paper they should win. Everything lines up that way, but I couldn't, for a good conscience, bet against the Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They have been too good for too long. They've been the underdog before. That people have counted them out. They always, give them the ball late in the fourth quarter. They're always going to have a chance to win. They're always going to win. But this is one where, finally, the stats and everything that experts thought came to fruition, and it was an absolute dominant performance by the Philadelphia Eagles. They win 40-22. They could have won by more, if they needed to, or had to keep the hammer down. And between the game, which was an absolute blowout, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, had 14 yards in the first half. From the game to the halftime show, it was just a debacle.
Yeah, it really was. It's certainly no interest, no excitement. That's happened a Super Bowl or two where it ended up being a blowout. 49ers did that one year. But, here's what I saw, Ronnie. The line of scrimmage. We always talk about that in football. The Eagles never blitzed one time. They did not call one blitz in the game. Their front four was way better than the Chiefs' offensive line, okay? And that made the difference. And I mean, they just were all over Mahomes. I think 43% of the times Mahomes tried to throw, he was under pressure, according to the pressure from the stat people or whatever. And it was just Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. I mean, I thought it would be Chiefs. I thought it would be over. That ended up working out. But, a lot of people I know thought Chiefs. Very few picked the Eagles, but the Eagles got it done. Now, here's the flip side of that. The Chiefs said, we're not going to let Saquon Barkley beat us. And he had 57 yards on 25 carries. They stuffed Barkley, who had arguably one of the greatest running seasons in NFL history. They stuffed him. They said, Jalen Hurts, you're going to have to beat us. Guess what? Hurts beat him, okay, with his legs, with his arms, with his, managing the game and all that. Ronnie, I got a couple things for you. Number one, go back to week 3 of the NFL. The Saints were 2-0, playing host to the Philadelphia Eagles. Saints were a 2.5-point favorite. The Eagles won 15-12. Remember that blown coverage thing got the Eagles a win. Shows you how long ago that could be and what a team can do, from week 3 to Philadelphia is going to have a Super Bowl parade in a day or two. So it was just all about the Eagles. Fortunately, when it was 17-0, I went in and live bet the Eagles at -8.5, trying to hedge my bet a little bit. So I got a little bit of it back, actually a decent amount back. So I didn't see it coming that way, but you can do nothing but give the Eagles credit.
A couple of thoughts. One is, Jalen Hurts rode that offensive line and the defensive line. Look, when Alabama football had its success under Nick Saban, they always would talk about the special players, the running backs, the receivers, the quarterbacks. But the reason that Alabama was so good was they had the offense and defensive line were usually superior than their opponent, and oftentimes the best unit in the country. The Eagles' defensive line is fantastic. I said it that third game of the season, 98 Carter from Georgia, the rookie, is going to be the best defensive lineman in the league. He just is a game changer. He single-handedly won the game for the Eagles defensively against the Saints in week 3. Remember, that was an offense that was on a record pace through the first 2 games, but he disrupted their offense and was in the backfield all day long. He did it again. I mean, as you mentioned, no blitzes. They had 16 pressures, 6 sacks, 38.9%, pressure rate with no blitzing is unheard of in the league. Just absolutely unheard of. And it destroyed the Chiefs in the first half. Patrick Mahomes was not his normal self through interceptions. and they just won the battle of the offensive line and the defensive line, which allowed Jalen Hurts to go 17 for 22 for 221 yards. He had 11 rushes for over 70 yards and a touchdown. He managed the team. He had all day to throw the football, and when he didn't have time to throw it or no one was open, he would run it. It was a dominant performance. And look, the Eagles fans in the Dome, Tommy, were 60-40. I would say 60% Eagles fans, 40% Chiefs. It reminded me, and also they were, obviously louder. It felt like 80% Eagles because they had much more to cheer for, and the Chiefs and Eagles fans are already loud and obnoxious anyway. If I heard "Fly Eagles Fly," that fight song one more time, I swear it felt like Rocky Top by Tennessee. I just kept hearing it over and over and over. But this was the 5th Super Bowl in 6 years, and it felt like fatigue for the Chiefs fans and their organization. The Eagles were everywhere in the quarter and all over. I mean, you saw probably 3-1, 4-1 Eagles to Chiefs fans wherever you went. And think about it, Tommy. You can't budget for the Super Bowl. When you're budgeting your family and what you're going to do, this is probably 20,000 is almost like the minimum you can go to the Super Bowl for when you take into consideration flights and hotels. And unless you buy the tickets at the last minute, you buy them a week or so in advance, you're paying a premium, and so every year for 5 of the last 6 years, they've been in the Super Bowl. So I think at some point, fans have to say no, or fans have to say, I can't go all week. I'll come at the end or whatever. The Eagles wanted to win. They were the most dominant off the field, on the field, and it was an absolute blowout. And all of a sudden, they made the Chiefs look old. They made Mahomes look slow. They made Kelsey look old.
Well, you mentioned Jalen Carter. He's the new Aaron Donald. Remember how good Aaron Donald was for the Rams and helped them win a Super Bowl. Okay, he's that guy now. Okay, he's Donald. I don't know if they did it, but he passed the torch to him on that. But Ronnie, when it was 17-0, okay, and the Chiefs get the ball, you're like, okay, hey, if they can get 7 here, they're getting the ball third quarter, pop them again at 17-14. Wow, we got a football game. But when you get the ball after 17-0 and you go 3 and out because of the pressure of that front of the Eagles, ball game. It was. I don't think anybody really thought the Chiefs were going to come back as in the second half. I mean, we can say adjustments, we can say this, we can say that. It wasn't going to happen. The Eagles were the better team. They came to play, well coached. The plan was there. They executed it, and then they didn't have to make any adjustments because everything they did was working. So they didn't have to adjust at halftime. They kicked back, had a bottle of water or whatever, and said, hey, just let us know when we got to go back out there for the third quarter. That's all it was with them.
Yeah, a lot of times, you see a blowout and then a team come back and, and the blowout's because of something goofy. A guy falls down, a couple tip balls, a weird thing. No. That's not what happened in this game. The Eagles dominated from the minute the Chiefs got off the bus and in the stadium. And it was so dominant that this wasn't a fluke. They didn't give a crack to the Chiefs to come back in this game. Credit Patrick Mahomes for making a couple of unbelievable throws in the second half. One, he's rolling to his right, falling out of bounds, slings it across his body, and fires a dart into the end zone for the first touchdown, and then throws that post route down in double coverage at the end, the last touchdown, which was about a 60-yard bomb. I mean, the guy's special, but this was the Eagles. I mean, they dumped the Gatorade, Tommy, with like 2:50 to go in the game. I mean, I've never seen that before. I mean, the Dome has hosted, or the New Orleans has hosted 11 Super Bowls, 3 in Tulane Stadium and the other 8 in the Dome. And unfortunately, the biggest blowout ever was 1990, the 49ers over the Broncos. And then now this one, it was another dominant, crazy game. It's you don't always get your money's worth in New Orleans. That's why the city is so – the city's so good off the field, people will overlook it. They were all complimentary in New Orleans in the Super Bowl, but the game was it was terrible.
Yeah, it was. I want to tip my hat to my hometown, New Orleans, actually, Chalmette, St. Bernard Parish, but spent a lot of time in New Orleans, obviously. New Orleans, Louisiana, great job hosting the Super Bowl. I think everybody, the weather was perfect. That helped the situation, obviously. The tribute before the game to the victims of New Year's Eve terrorist
Lady
attack.
Gaga. Yeah.
I mean, it was, I mean, A plus across the board for New Orleans. And people already, Sean Payton says they ought to have a Super Bowl every 5 years. It should be in New Orleans. End of story. All the renovations to the dome were, in effect that they've been working on for 2 years. The city, and again, the weather helped. The heightened security. You have President Trump there. I mean, it was just a lot of stuff going on. It just the game just didn't live up to everything else, but that's going to happen when you play football. And I just want to tip my hat to the city of New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, and all the people that put that show on and hosted this Super Bowl.
Tommy, the French Quarter, this is what I mean. If you'd have seen the French Quarter in person, I mean, how clean it was, how safe it was. Of course, you couldn't have had better weather all week long. I mean, it was 83 degrees on 83 degrees on Saturday or Sunday or whatever during the day. It was just insane. This is when you knew something was different. On Sunday morning, I woke up in the French Quarter and walked outside, and I saw a water truck coming down the road. One of those sprayers that sprays water in the road to kind of clean it. Clean the road. It just was a sprayer. It wasn't one of those bristles. It wasn't like a sweeper. It was just a sprayer to kind of give it. And on the side of the water truck was a big giant lemon. It was lemon scented water that they were spraying in the French Quarter, going up and down the streets. I'm like, well, where is this all the rest of the year? Like, we could use this all the time. The Saints in the New Orleans broke out to good China for the Super Bowl. I mean, you weren't eating off of paper plates, baby. This was the good China. They had lemon scented water sprayers going on. And there was like a crew of just random people with like orange vests on, yellow vests that were walking around with trash cans cleaning up. I'm like, how much extra do you have to pay to have this year round? I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, having spent many a night and morning in the French Quarter and in the city of New Orleans at the flea market or the beignets or the river walk, that would have been nice most every morning during the Sugar Bowl, during Mardi Gras, during Jazz Fest, during French Quarter Fest. I mean, wow, maybe it'd be nice if they could have that year round because it's such a great place for entertainment and parties and all of that. But I'm glad you told me that because it's good to know.
Here's the thing, too, is that we know that New Orleans isn't going to have it every 5 years, like Sean Payton said. Because the NFL rewards franchises, and every owner and city wants to have a Super Bowl. I mean, it's such a huge economic impact for everybody involved. And the league uses the Super Bowl as a carrot to dangle to get new stadiums built in other cities. Hey, Detroit, you build a new stadium, we'll give you a Super Bowl. I mean, and that's the gig. I think it was what, Tommy, 11 or 12 years since the last time the Saints, hosted the Super Bowl. I think it was the Ravens, lights went out game. Hopefully they can get into at least a once every 10-year kind of rotation because the league deserves it. The city is the best. How about this, Tommy? Because of the tragedy that happened on January 1 and the terrorist attack and everything like that, the security was extra tight. The security's always extra tight for a Super Bowl post 9/11, but even more so the city of New Orleans. I felt like the barricades, the how close you could get to the dome on game day with your car or with your pedicab or whatever the case may be. That they wouldn't let you drive past a certain point, right? And it was, I think, extended. I think it was just a few blocks further out was probably the perimeter because of what happened on January 1. So therefore, I decided to just walk. Now, where I live, Tommy, and down in the quarter is at St. Philip in Decatur. That's kind of where the Joan of Arc statue is on Decatur, which is sort of at the fringe of the French market. It's literally 1.5 miles from the Superdome. And which isn't that bad of a walk. I walked 1.5 miles after the game. And the reality is that that's the great thing about the city of New Orleans, everything is technically in walking distance. The hotels, the restaurants, the nightclubs, where the Super Bowl parties are, for the most part, 90% of them are all within walking distance of each other. And if you had to, you could walk. And I think that's what makes New Orleans, and Indianapolis for that matter, they kind of have the same downtown configuration, so great, and why people enjoy going to those Super Bowls. So we'll have to wait and see when the next time is they'll have one.
Yeah, no, and again, the weather helped, but yeah. So I don't think anybody would be against it coming to New Orleans. But like you said, the NFL takes care of owners and takes care of cities, and especially if there's a new stadium or a major remodel job like the Dome did. So I'm one of the people who can say I've seen every Super Bowl that's ever been played. I'm old enough to have done that. So and I remember the very first ones in Tulane Stadium in New Orleans, but we'll see what happens in the future. But again, tip of the hat to New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, for hosting the Super Bowl and putting on a hell of a show.
Kellen Moore came out, of course, during Super Bowl week that he was going to be the next head coach, the worst kept secret in football, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. So you got to feel good about that. That'll help sell it to Saints fans and whatnot that, hey, guy just won the Super Bowl. He was a little maligned at times in Dallas, but he goes over to Philadelphia. It's a perfect fit. And here he is, a Super Bowl champ coming to New Orleans.
Well, Ronnie, if the day after they fired Dennis Allen, if we would have told Saints fans, hey, your next coach is going to be the guy that's the offensive coordinator for the Super Bowl champ. Okay. I mean, the day after they fired Allen, we didn't know it would be the Eagles. But if you'd have told Saints fans, I think they'd say, hey, okay, I'm in. I like that idea. So that's what you're getting, the offensive coordinator from the Super Bowl champs who, called a good game. I mean, it wasn't working with Barkley. They kept trying to get it because he's a home run hitter, and he could have, at any one of them plays, if he gets a seam, he's gone. But then he helped Hurts make it happen, and I think the Saints will be good. We'll see. Time will tell. And if he'll be the number one, we need the official announcement, and then we'll see what happens.
LSU men's and women's basketball played over the weekend. For the women, hey, the beat goes on. They had an impressive win against Tennessee. Tough stretch coming up for LSU women. 3 of the next 4 are against ranked teams on the road. So we're going to kind of see what Kim Mulkey's squad's about. 2 of those against top 10 teams. For the men, Tommy, an epic collapse over the weekend.
Well, the women got to go to Texas next Sunday. They got a whole week to get ready. And Texas just beat South Carolina. First South Carolina SEC loss in a long time. So that's going to be something there. So the men, 11-point lead with under 3 minutes to go, and you lose the game at home. You can't. Yeah, Ole Miss is good, but you can't do that. It's kind of like, it's not as bad as that 31-point lead collapse Dale Brown had against Kentucky a couple of decades ago. But now the question is legit. Is Matt McMahon? He's had 3 years now. He doesn't have anybody can shoot the basketball. They're going to win no more than 2 games in the SEC, and they only got 1 right now. Is he back next year? That question will be answered, I guess, in the coming weeks. I don't think he will be. I mean, it's just the program is not looking like a program of a guy in his 3rd year coach. Granted, the SEC is the best basketball conference in the country. How long has it been since we said that? But still, it's about collapsing an 11-point lead and some of the other blowouts they've had. They're just not competing. They're not close. But Kim Mulkey, we're going to find out a lot. They're going to be fine. They're going to be in the tournament. They're going to make a run, but we'll see how they do going forward.
Cam Carter is their best player as far as scorer, and he was a big part of the epic collapse in the last minute. I mean, just turnovers and mistakes, and this was a terrible one. I feel bad for them. Look, you and I both lost our bet in that game. We had Ole Miss -5.5, and then when it's tied up, you're hoping, can we go to overtime, because the momentum's clearly on their side, and unfortunately tip in at the buzzer and they lose. But I feel bad for McMahon and his staff. Good guys, good people. They had the momentum last year, finished 500 in the league. Everybody's just super happy because they expected them to win 2 or 3 games last year. And here we are this year, just not happening at all. I think he will be back. I think LSU's not in a position to buy out coaches right now financially. They're struggling to raise NIL money and to keep up with the Joneses in the SEC. And I just don't think they have the resources to buy out a coach that Scott Woodward hired, their AD, and a coach that, they gave a hall pass to the first year he was the head coach. It didn't count because when he took over the team, he had 0 players on scholarship because they all went in the portal after Will Wade was fired. So I think he gets the benefit of doubt financially. I think he's a likable enough guy. On paper, he's got a good class coming in recruiting wise. Now, is he going to be able to hold that class together if they're having this continuing to have such a terrible year? That could play a big factor. But I just don't think they have the cheese, Tommy, at the end of the day, or the stomach to go buy out a coach right now in the transition year of going from this other NIL to this new NIL and then paying players and having a percentage share, rev share. It's just so much ooginess that I think he does survive.
Well, it'll come down to, can you afford to fire him? Can you afford not to fire him? And that's why Scott Woodward and his staff are going to have to make that decision.
Lastly, is it tonight that the Pels are a 16.5-point dog?
Yeah, they're playing against the Thunder in Oklahoma City. They're not going to win. The question is, can they keep it close? And then, Ronnie, I know we'll talk more on Wednesday and Friday, but LSU baseball and Division I baseball gets underway statewide. A lot of big expectations for the Raging Cajuns and other teams in Louisiana. But LSU, 2 o'clock Friday, 1 o'clock Saturday, 1 o'clock Sunday, 3-day games against the Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons. That's an elephant kind of thing, okay? They're in the Horizon League. They're not a good team. They haven't had a winning season since 2016, 19-37 last year, 11-19 in their league. They are a Division I team from Fort Wayne, Indiana, part of the Purdue University system, okay? It's a public university. So you would think LSU wins all three, but as you and I both know, you got to line up and go get them, and maybe Fort Wayne has a little juice, and if they got one pitcher, then we'll see what happens. But I fully expect LSU to sweep the Mastodons this week. 3-day games at the box.
Yeah, I'm looking to see Friday at the box. Expected to be 66 high, 61 low, but 33% chance of rain on Friday, 80% chance of rain on Saturday, and 22% chance of rain on Sunday. This heat that we're enjoying is going to leave us on Sunday. The low will be down in the 30s, but the high will be in the upper 70s. It's going to be 82 degrees on Saturday, Tommy. 82 degrees on Saturday. Hey, the coldest I've ever been is at the old Alex Box Stadium. I've been freezing cold many, many times. It won't be that way this week, but we'll have to be dealing with the weather. And Jay Johnson's staff will be tarping and untarping and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the second coldest I've ever been has been in Alex Box Stadium. And I'll save the coldest story for another day.
All right. For Tommy Christ-San, I'm Ronnie Rance. TK, tell us about Court Street Cafe. As we get out of here, we'll be back on Wednesday morning.
Court Street Cafe, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Jason and the staff do a great job. Steak night on Saturday. Sunday, you got to get the Sunday brunch on your schedule very soon. 805 Court Street in Port Allen, just a couple of minutes over the Mississippi River Bridge. Plenty of parking. Again, patio out front when the weather's nice. A lot of people were eating out there this morning when I arrived. Court Street Cafe, Port Allen. You got to check it out. Connect with them on Facebook and Instagram. You'll learn the lunch specials, red beans and rice today, dinner specials. They have dinner of the special of the week. A lot going on. Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. We need you to check it out.
All right. For Tommy, I'm Ronnie. Thanks for joining us. And congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, your Super Bowl champion. And fingers crossed that mojo rubs off on Kellen Moore, your next New Orleans Saints head coach. All right. We'll see you on Wednesday, everybody. Have a good one.